Hi, this is Primary Cinema, and this is kind of a different video than I usually do. If you're familiar with my channel, I usually make video essays with film clips and edits and motion graphics and that type of thing, when I have time. Obviously, not that often. But today I'm doing something a little different because I had the privilege of attending the Cannes Film Festival last week, and I was only there for a few days. I saw 7 films, but I'm going to just quickly talk about each film I saw, give you a quick sort of impression, a little capsule review of them maybe, and then I'll let you go off with the rest of your day, do whatever you so wish. I'll say I will write at some stage something a bit more personal about my experience going to Cannes and sort of just what it meant to me personally, because it was a very important trip for me, and sort of a dream come true in a lot of ways. So I'll be writing about that in my Substack in the next while. If you want to subscribe there and see that for more Cannes information, you can. But but if you just want to hear about the movies, that's what I'm just going to be talking about today. So yeah, I saw 7 movies while I was there, and we'll just get started. I'll go through them one by one. The first movie I saw was Seven Samurai. I know what you're thinking. Gavin, that movie is 70 years old. Why were you watching that at Cannes and not a new release? Well, for a lot of reasons. One being I was there just for the first 3 days of the festival, so things sort of start off slow and heat up as they go along. I chose that slot because I wanted to kind of have an opportunity to see some of the more hyped about movies, mainly Megalopolis, which I did get to see and I'll talk about later on in the video. So I'm happy enough with it, but it did mean sort of the first day or two were a bit slower and things kind of became busier as my time progressed. So there's basically a free screening available at 9 a.m. on the opening day of the film festival for Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. And you know, hey, it was, I'll have you know, a world premiere of the new restoration, 4K restoration with a new sound mix. And I'll just let you know, Seven Samurai, good movie. Actually, great movie. I hadn't seen it before. Kurosawa is sort of a blind spot for me. But yeah, I mean, this isn't breaking news or anything, but it's an amazing movie. It's so well composed and edited and just has such a great vibe. It's like surprisingly still extremely funny at parts. It still has a sort of feel of a blockbuster main event movie, even after all these years, which I think is really impressive. I don't know if the new 4K restoration is planned to go to a sort of theatrical release at all, or if it will go straight to physical media. But if you do get the opportunity to see it in a theatrical environment, I would encourage you to do so. I just find it's a lot better to see it in a cinema environment where there's no distractions and it's properly presented, so you can really appreciate it. And if you can do that for Seven Samurai, you will have a great time. I really think so. So, Seven Samurai, breaking news, good picture. I give it 7 stars. Okay. Okay, and then later on that day, the first new film I saw at the festival was Simon of the Mountain. This was the opening film of the critics portion of the festival. Small, independent Argentinian film. That was very interesting to watch. The film follows Simon, a young man, about 21, I think, as he sort of starts attending a day center for disabled youth, just out of a urge for connection and sort of social engagement, I think, rather than actually having a disability. This becomes a sort of plot point in the film where he tries to fake having various disabilities and symptoms and try and get a disability card or recognition from the government so he can continue attending this centre. It's sort of a very uneasy sort of film. Obviously, that's sort of a topic that could be poorly handled, but I think it was very well done for the most part. It's sort of a catch-22 thing, isn't it? The idea of Simon, who you can tell, you know, probably needs help in some sort of sense, but there maybe isn't sort of the words or verbiage for it. So I thought it was very compelling in that sense, that kind of dichotomy. I did think, however, the film manages to stay fairly vague on his intentions and sort of background, his childhood. A lot of his kind of family dynamics aren't thoroughly explored. And I would have liked maybe to have seen that being a little bit more just examined. So I do sort of wish there was a sort of stronger stance taken by the filmmaker in that sense. That we could have kind of had more of a stronger conclusion, whereas it's sort of left a little bit vague and kind of unanswered, which is totally an understandable decision creatively, and it sort of communicates its own sort of point, doesn't it? But for just personally watching it, I felt had it gone a little bit more in one direction or the other, it could have been really, really excellent. But still, a very good film by a first-time director, a young cast, who I all expect to have very bright futures ahead of them. And I'll be excited to see what they all do next. The third film I saw at Cannes was probably the surprise of the festival for me. It wasn't originally something that was on my radar. I had hoped to, at that time, attend another Cannes Classics screening, that time of Frederick Wiseman's Law and Order, just for the simple fact that Frederick Wiseman was going to be in attendance, and I'm a huge fan of his work. But it didn't work out that way. I sort of got lost getting to the theatre, and big long security line that delayed me, and I got there just a bit too late to be able to attend. So I was a bit disappointed by that, but I quickly sort of just ran onto the Cannes ticketing website and grabbed a ticket for When the Light Breaks. This was the opening film of the Uncertain Regard section of the festival, directed by Runar Runarsson. Fantastic Icelandic name. Fair play. And I was really, really impressed with it. It follows a group of college students who are sort of experiencing the aftermath of a huge disaster tragedy in Iceland. Basically, a tunnel explodes, and there's hundreds or maybe thousands of people trapped and affected by it. And this story sort of focuses in just on this one group of friends. They have one friend who they're not sure is in the tunnel, is out, is alive, is dead. They find all this out as the movie goes on. I had sort of very impressive cinematography. I thought the blocking and the staging was just fantastic. There's some really amazing shots, particularly of characters just sort of walking through crowds. There's just great sort of very busy environments with lots of people feeling lots of different emotions, and it's all sort of manages to be achieved in a tracking shot in a really fantastic way. That happens a few times, and as well there's a lot of sort of motifs about windows and reflections going on in the cinematography, which I thought were really meaningful. Stylistically, it sort of reminded me a lot of Anatomy of a Fall, which is of course last year's Palme d'Or winner. It has that sort of sheen of sort of prestige TV, HBO sort of look to it. It reminded me of parts of like episodes of Succession. It has just that sort of look, that kind of lush environments with a very strong sort of directorial vision behind the camera. So I had a really great time with it. I was also very impressed by the film's ending. It, of course, sort of starts off with this big bang, this big commotion of this national tragedy that's going on. That would be international news, no doubt. But it ends on a very, very sort of small, soft note. Just an interaction between two characters that I thought was really, really effective. And I thought that was a really brave decision by the filmmakers. Runar Runarsson, fair play, as I said. Great name, great film. Wish you all the best. Immediately after that film, I saw Wild Diamond, which was competing in the main competition. This film probably wasn't really for me all that much. I can still admire a lot of the work that went into it. It's about a I guess, an aspiring social media influencer from a working class background in France who sort of gets this opportunity to audition for a reality show, very much similar to like Love Island or one of those. And just the experience of having that audition and sort of getting a little bit more attention just from that alone and waiting to hear back on whether she will actually be accepted for the show or not sort of just kickstarts a new beginning for the character, who she begins to imagine herself with, wealthy and famous and successful. And that kind of bumps up against the realities that she's living in at that current time, at least. I do have to give the film props for the empathy it showed the main character. I find, at least oftentimes, when a film is about influencer culture or social media engagement, it sort of feels a bit flat, as if the screenwriters maybe don't know exactly what they're talking about in some way. But this one felt very much real and realistic and probably very well researched. So I thought that was very well done. It was very striking to me as well. I saw Andrea Arnold's Bird, which I'll talk about in a little bit, as well at the festival. Very sort of similar film. And I suppose Wild Diamond definitely had like a feeling of being influenced by Andrea Arnold's filmography. So I'll just point that out, that sort of similarity, that kind of idea of like working class backgrounds, marginalized people. It had that kind of empathy and understanding that Andrea Arnold is known for. But, I saw Bird the next day and it sort of blew it out of the water, to be honest. But I'll talk about that soon. Wild Diamond, good film. Not exactly my cup of tea, but, I've no complaints with it. Fine film. Now, one film I was really, really excited to see, and had been on my radar, was On Becoming a Guinea Fowl. I'm Irish, if you haven't noticed already, and so I'm always interested in seeing what Element Pictures, who are an Irish production company, what sort of movies they're working on and releasing. They're most well known for working with Yorgos Lanthimos on all his films since The Lobster. And I thought this was a pretty interesting choice for them to produce, directed by Rungano Naioni, who is most well known for directing I Am Not a Witch, which came out a few years ago, a film I really like. And this was a really interesting film. It opens with a young woman driving alone in her car at night through rural Zambia. And she sort of just comes across a dead body in the middle of the road. And she's very sort of lackadaisical and forthright about this experience. She doesn't panic. She isn't very upset. We learned that this is her uncle that she's discovered dead. And we also learn sort of why she isn't all that mournful about his passing. He was an abusive man, sexually abusive. And so what sort of goes on then is this very traditional and very theatrical mourning process that this woman and her family have to go through. And it sparks sort of conversations, brings up a lot of resentment, a lot of pain within the family that kind of begins conversations about the culture that they're living in and the environment and society that they're sort of subject to. And this is especially for the women in the family. A lot of conversations strike up about how to protect one another, how to live and survive under a sort of patriarchal structure that makes it difficult for women to speak up and protect themselves against abusers. And I say all this, it sounds like a real downer of a film. It's actually very funny, definitely in a black comedy sense, but has a really great sort of understanding of genre where it can balance really nicely between sort of funny dialogue, dramatic scenes, and then also has a very sort of ominous, almost horror movie score as well. So it balances all those different tones and ideas really brilliantly, I thought, and came together in a really lovely way. A fantastic movie. And then, as I said, the movie I was sort of most hyped for and had the most sort of conversation and discussion going into the festival was, of course, Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. Oh boy, this movie is weird. It's divisive. In my screening alone, there was about 10 people in the row I was sitting in, and 2 of them walked out. They didn't last the length of the film. And there was a lot of kind of confusion and people, I guess, not really knowing how to react to a lot of what was going on. But it's been a week since I saw the film, and it's really sort of dominated my thoughts since. I've been thinking about it an awful lot. It's been hard not to think about. And I really enjoyed the experience of seeing it. I think it's not for everyone. I think the sort of story, the idea of this Roman fable. So to give just a quick idea of the story, it follows Adam Driver, who was Caesar, this sort of master architect who has created a new building material, megalom, I don't know. He's created this new material and plans to build a huge utopian city from it and sort of redefine how we live and work and all that. This is sort of bumped up against the realities of sort of political corruption, bureaucracy, and just sort of the status quo that's represented by Giancarlo Esposito, who plays the mayor of New Rome, which is this sort of hybrid between ancient Rome and New York City. I would say personally for me, the story didn't land all that well. I thought the script is very sort of up and down. A lot of ideas get introduced and then quickly kind of get dismissed. A lot of kind of obstacles get introduced, get overcome very sort of sequentially. It just doesn't have it has a very sort of strange rhythm, the film. What really stood out to me and what I found was most successful and most interesting were some of the technical decisions behind the camera that Francis Ford Coppola made in this film. Some of them were very successful. I was quite impressed with the use of digital sets and environments in the film. If you've seen the trailer, you know kind of what I mean. It's a very digital, unreal, sort of false reality that the film takes place in. And I think you could just dismiss that as bad CGI, but I don't think that's really what's going on here. I think the heightened unreality is very much intentional, and that sort of comes back to some more of the meta aspects of the film that I'll talk about in a minute. But I thought the use of digital environments was most interesting in the idea of contrasting sort of the actors against the environment. I'm particularly kind of thinking about one rooftop scene where the sky has a very sort of time-lapse quality to it, where I imagine, I'm guessing, I don't know, it was shot with time-lapse cameras, and then Adam Driver was shot separately on a green screen or on the volume LED wall technology, and sort of that juxtaposition between 2 different types of filmmaking was interesting to me. Now, I might be wrong there. It could have been an effect that was done whole cloth in CGI. I know some time-lapse photography was shot for the film back in 2001 and 2002. So maybe it was used, maybe it wasn't. But the idea, anyway, of these kind of real people in false environments was interesting. Speaking of real people, something that wasn't all that successful, still very kind of noteworthy, was a strange thing that happened at the screening. Midway through the film, a man approached the screen with a lectern and a microphone, and a light turned on in the cinema that shined down on him, and he began to interview Adam Driver's character on the screen. This is, of course, very weird. It was a very sort of Brechtian interruption, and had this kind of effect of really made you question, what the hell is this movie? What's going on? Anything could happen. So in that sense, it was sort of fun and engaging. But I think the actual content of the scene itself was, for the most part, kind of superfluous. And, you know, it wasn't all that necessary. I think it's going to be cut from when it gets a national rollout. And it won't be very much missed, I don't think. It's a fun idea. It's obviously something where Francis Ford Coppola is playing around and trying out different ideas and experimenting. And, you know, I gotta appreciate him doing that. Of course, this is a movie he's tried to get made for about half his lifetime now. And he is entirely self-financed to the tune of $120 million. So if he wants to experiment and try out new ideas and see sort of what the future of filmmaking might be, I'm all for it. But this one, at least in this case, it didn't feel all that necessary. And it's not sort of a scene that is justified within the body of the film. It's not like a hugely fourth wall breaking movie. It has moments like that, but you know, it's not House of Leaves or anything like that where it's hugely experimental, and this felt more like tacked on. I could tell definitely the audience at my screening was pretty confused when the light went down and the actor sort of ran back away from the screen afterwards. There was a sort of very light smattering of applause. And of course, the film just sort of kept on going as well, which was kind of the strange thing about it. It wasn't sort of paced for the audience to take a moment and go, what was that? Okay, applause, process it, move on. It sort of just kept on running. And as such, it felt like a really strange interruption. Fun experience, but I don't think it's really sort of a waymark for the future of film in the way that maybe the digital sets were. As well as that, another kind of interesting thing is the very maximalist editing that goes on, especially towards the later part of the film. There's a lot of just, again, thanks to digital photography, I think it was very easy for Coppola to compose lots of different elements in different parts of the screen and make a really sort of packed frame of information. And I found that really entertaining. It sort of made me think of sort of Sergei Eisenstein and the sort of beginning principles of montage, the idea of one frame preceded by another and how that can communicate different information about emotion, about plot, about anything. And that kind of idea I felt was being explored up on the big screen. It had sort of lots of images from different times, different perspectives, different characters were all on screen at the same time. And it felt like sort of you couldn't really focus in on one at a time. It just sort of all had to wash over you very quickly. And I enjoyed that. As I said, it is a divisive movie. You can see the reviews are very mixed that have come out. People at my screening obviously walked out. I think there is probably a certain type of cinema goer or film lover who will feel like they don't really need that experimentation to be done on their time. But for me, at least, someone who's very interested in film and media and sort of postmodernism and metafiction and all that kind of stuff, it really interested me. I'd had a really great time and I've been thinking about it ever since, basically. I can't wait to see it again. And I'll probably talk about it more when I do see it again. If anyone is interested in hearing that, maybe let me know in the comments. Would you be interested in hearing more about Megalopolis? Because I could talk about it for hours, I think. Really interesting movie. Very difficult to really say much else. I mean, at times it sort of felt like a tech demo. If you've seen like those Unreal Engine tech demos that they sometimes do for new game engines, where they sort of showcase what was possible with the technology. And that was what this felt like. It was a showcase of possibilities and ideas. It's very much sort of, it's not so much a statement of a film, but much more of a question. It's really just asking, what about this? What about this? Is this something? It kind of felt like almost like a comedian workshopping material. Is this an idea? Could we do this? Does this work? Some of it worked, some of it didn't. It was all very interesting for me. Some people would find it grating, but I'd encourage you to check it out and go in with an open mind and see what you think. Okay, I'm nearly done now. The last movie I saw was Andrea Arnold's Bird, as I previously said I saw. I really enjoyed this movie. It might be my favorite just film I saw at the festival. Megalopolis is, of course, its own thing, but just as a fun film experience, this was really great. It's about a young girl named Bailey who lives in a council estate in England, and her life sort of gets disturbed by this man, Bird, who sort of just walks into her life one day, played by Franz Rogowski, who was amazing in the movie. And he sort of is this sort of otherworldly presence almost. He walks in, she finds him sort of frolicking through a field in a skirt is the first scene where they meet. So they're very much of two different worlds. But they strike up a friendship, and she helps him sort of look for information about his parents, who he thinks either live or have lived in the estate where she lives. It's an Andrea Arnold film, so it's made with a great amount of care and sensitivity. It feels really well examined and detailed, and warm-hearted as well. It sort of takes a spin towards the end, away from sort of the social realism maybe Andrea Arnold is more known for, towards something a bit fantastical, or at least sort of childhood imagination-y, in a way that I thought was really amazing. I won't spoil anything, obviously, but I thought the film just had a really lovely sort of arc to it, where it began as very grounded, very real. I think the song that plays over, like the opening credits, is the refrain is this too real for you? So it starts off very, very real and grounded and gritty, as we kind of expect from Andrea Arnold, but it leaves it in a place that's much more sort of fantastical, I suppose. You could call it maybe magical realism. I guess it is sort of that, but as well, I think no doubt there's an element of this being seen through a child's eyes as well. But look, I really enjoyed it. I would say standout performer for me was Barry Keoghan. I thought he was really amazing in this movie. He plays Bailey's father. It's just a supporting role, but every time he was on screen, it was like magnetic. The audience really kind of perked up and were really interested in seeing what he would do next. He's a very warm presence, very boisterous presence in the film, really entertaining, sort of the comedic relief, but also has a really great kind of emotional arc. So I thought he was really amazing. It might be my favorite performance by Barry. And again, being Irish, I've seen a lot of his movies, so that says a lot. I think I would say maybe the movie has some pacing issues, some sort of editing issues. I'd say, for example, like Bailey has a brother who becomes sort of more important later on in the film, and I would have liked maybe if he was introduced a little bit better in the beginning. But that's, nitpicky kind of. I think it's a really fantastic movie with a great emotional sort of gut punch, and Andrea Arnold's just sort of done it again, to be honest. I love her movies, and this is, fantastic. So that's it. Those are the 7 movies I saw at Cannes. I obviously wish I had been able to stay there for longer and see tons and tons more movies, but I saw what I saw, and I was really happy with, especially the last 3 films. They were kind of the ones that I had gone into the festival wishing to see. So to get the opportunity to go to Cannes to see the films that I was really most excited about, and just have that entire experience was really fun, really rewarding, very special for me personally. as a huge sort of cinema nerd and obsessive, maybe even. So I had a really great time. The movies were fantastic for the most part, and the experience was really special as well. So those are the 7 movies I saw at Cannes. Let me know in the comments if there's a movie I mentioned you're most excited about seeing. If you have any thoughts about Megalopolis at all, please put them in the comments. I'm excited to hear about all and any of them. And I'll say just very quickly, thank you very much for the support on my last video, my video essay about the Muppets and TV. It's gotten really sort of lovely response with lots of nice comments, and it seems to have found a good audience. So thank you very, very much for that. And I'll be back soon at some stage. It's difficult to make those video essays. It takes a lot of work. I think I was literally hundreds of hours went into that Muppet one. But I don't know. I could do more of these videos maybe if I get over hating being on camera. So let me know. You know, if there's if you want to see more, you can like, subscribe, comment.